Nice to see everybody. We're on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen-speaking people of the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. It's nice to see everybody here. Obviously, we're gathered here because it is Rabbi Kaplan's birthday. Happy birthday, Rabbi Kaplan. Rabbi Kaplan has done amazing work serving the community here for many, many years, and we wish you a very, very happy birthday. And if you're wondering, we have an informant literally inside your house who let us know about that. Where to start? I think when we think about the values we have as British Columbians, as Canadians, there are some very fundamental values, and they involve the ability to be who you are, to worship as you wish to worship, for people to be able to move freely around the community and do what they need to do. There are two specific groups that we've been concerned about in terms of protest activities and other activities, harassing activities targeted at these groups recently. It is a disturbing trend. It is not unique to British Columbia, but it is one that British Columbia is uniquely taking on. The first group is kids going to school. Children need to be able to attend their schools. The staff need to be able to get to schools without harassment, without intimidation. This is a basic fundamental right to education that every child has in our province, and we're going to make sure that that is delivered. The other group is people who worship. Now, regardless of your faith, regardless of how you pray, there is a fundamental requirement here in the province under our government that everybody be able to pray and worship as they wish, and to do so without harassment and intimidation. These are core rights in a free and democratic society, and unfortunately, we have seen disturbing incidents that have raised concerns here in British Columbia and across the country. Just this weekend in Ontario, there were shots fired at synagogues, profoundly threatening, violent act aimed expressly at intimidating the Jewish community in Ontario. We have seen similar disturbing events here in British Columbia targeting not just the Jewish community, but a number of different religious communities in the province. We need to make sure that people are able to attend their place of worship and feel comfortable doing so and feel protected in doing so. There is no place in our province for racism, for discrimination, for Islamophobia, for anti-Semitism. We will not stand for it. There is no place for bigotry that targets people's faith. And so what we're announcing today is how we intend to take a leadership role across the country in establishing a safe right of access to religious institutions for people in British Columbia. Specifically, we will be introducing a new law that we propose that the House pass to ensure that people who are attending a church, a gurdwara, a synagogue, a mosque, a temple, that they are able to do so without harassment, establishing a perimeter around the outside where intimidating activity is not allowed to take place. Now, the law will require that there be clear signage so that people know this is a place of worship, these are the expectations, this is the perimeter where these activities are not allowed, so that everybody understands what is expected. Now, it's disappointing, obviously, that we have to post signs like this, but that is something that we will do to ensure that everybody understands what the expectations are in terms of religious spaces. The police will be able to intervene if harassment does occur, whether by removing an individual from the area if they refuse to cease the conduct, potentially by issuing a ticket. There are a number of actions that can be taken. But the core here is protecting activities that are at the heart of what it means to be in a free and democratic society, while minimally impairing the rights of people to protest if that is what they choose to do. In addition, we're here to announce that we will be extending similar protection that exists for schools in British Columbia. We established the Safe Access to Schools Act in 2023. This was created in response to similar disruptive protests that were targeted at school officials and students going into school. That included adults shouting at and disrupting and intimidating children and staff and blocking their access. We have, that law created a safe zone around schools to make sure that students and staff would be able to get to class safely. As a result of that law, we saw disruptions go down very significantly, but unfortunately they did not and were not eliminated completely. And so we have made the decision to extend the protections under this law to 2028, recognizing that teachers and families and students attending school deserve to be able to attend school safely. Now, here in British Columbia, freedom of speech, the right to protest, remains an important right that is protected, and peaceful protest will always be protected in our province. But harassment and intimidation of students, teachers, people attending places of faith cross the line. Rights come with responsibilities and balancing different rights across our democracy. This is grounded in our values of respect, of inclusion, and belonging. And that is who we are at the core as British Columbians and as Canadians. Thank you very much for joining us here today, and I'll pass it on to the Attorney General, Niki Sharma.
Thank you, Premier. I'd just like to start by acknowledging that we're on traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees, and the Esquimalt Nation. And I also want to take a very special moment to talk about the people that are behind us. We learned today that a gathering of faith leaders is called a wisdom. So what we have behind us is a wisdom. And I think it's beautiful to take a look behind you at the range of faith leaders that we have gathered here today from different backgrounds, different parts of the world, different religions. It's truly remarkable. I hope we get pictures, lots of pictures today. I want to acknowledge who's here: the Congregation Emmanuel, Victoria Hindu Temple, Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, BC, Khalsa Diwan Society, Vancouver and Victoria, the Victoria Multi-Faith Council, Chabad of Vancouver Island, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Christchurch Cathedral, Victoria Masjid and Miss BC Muslim Association, and the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs. I want to thank you all for taking the time to stand with us today, along with our lovely MLAs that are back there. As the Premier announced, today I'll be tabling two crucial pieces of legislation that will help balance government's duty to protect people from harmful behavior and to uphold the fundamental freedom for expression that we all have in Canada. To give a bit of context as to why we're doing this today, we are in BC, we're fortunate to live where we do, where we can express our opinions and debate our beliefs without fear of being persecuted, no matter how unpopular they are. And I truly believe that maintaining that as a fundamental core of our society is very important. But as the Premier highlighted, in recent years, we've seen a really worrying trend where some really bad faith actors are crossing lines. We've seen incidents where people have attempted to block others from accessing healthcare facilities in COVID. We've seen incidents where grown adults have gathered outside schools to shout at teachers in front of young, impressionable students just trying to get to class before the bell rings. And we've seen incidents where people of faith seeking to access their place of worship, which should be safe, where they can face intimidation, threats, and hate speech. I believe in the freedom of expression, and we all do. And we all know that balancing this with the right to practice your religion free of intimidation is important. The Safe Access to Places of Worship Act is one way we are ensuring that this social contract is maintained. This law, if passed, will create access zones, kind of like sanctuary zones, protections of specific places of worship, like mosques, synagogues, temples, gurdwaras, churches, and mandirs. It would allow eligible places of worship to maintain designated safe access zones 20 meters around their properties. These access zones are not no-go zones where no one is allowed. The law would prohibit people from engaging in certain disruptive behaviors within this access zone. This includes physically obstructing access to that place of worship, attempting to persuade people not to go into the building, or purposefully disrupting activities occurring at this site, for instance, by playing unreasonably loud music. The bill has a 4-year sunset clause, which means the legislature will be required to revisit this action in 2030 to reassess the protections within the context of that time. By doing this, we ensure the protections are effective now and that the law remains flexible and responsive to society. I want to take a moment again to address those faith leaders who have joined us today. Over the last few years, and at least definitely in the last several months, many of you have shared with me painful stories of elderly people in your communities who just want to attend a service or an event and they're being intimidated and blocked. People gathering at your place of worship with a specific goal of spreading hate and intimidating people to go to that place of worship. And that people don't feel safe to enter because of these disruptions. And historic or holy celebrations and prayers being interrupted drowned out by purposely loud music. And I know how difficult this has been for you, and I just want to appreciate you sharing those stories with us. And just to say that as a government, we understand how wrong this behavior is, and that's why we're taking the actions that we're doing today. Our diversity in British Columbia is our strength. You can see that diversity behind us today. And we take great pride in that. During the toughest moments across this province, it's faith leaders like the ones behind us that have stood up to support their communities, to help guide us through difficult times like the pandemic or climate emergencies. I'm so grateful for what they offer our communities across this province, and we're also very happy to support them in this way. So thank you for all that you do to keep British Columbia what it is today. So just in conclusion, to be clear, I know most people in BC are respectful of each other and our differences, and we have a rich history of peaceful demonstrations and protests in this province, one that we can all be proud of. This law does not target any particular group or belief, or even the vast majority of people in our province. It allows us to extend basic courtesy to people of all faiths and ensure places of public worship remain welcoming environments for those who depend on them. Thank you all for being here today, and I'll pass it over to Minister Beare.
Thank you, everyone. Lisa Beare, Minister of Education and Childcare. I too want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of the Songhees Nation and the Esquimalt Nations. My top priority as Minister of Education has always been to ensure that students and staff are safe in their environments. We need students to feel loved, to feel respected, so that they can thrive in their studies. And unfortunately, we've seen schools targeted for protests and for disruptive behavior. While everyone has the right to freedom of expression in this province and the right to peaceful protest, disrupting children when they are learning is inappropriate. which is why in 2024 we activated the access zones to prohibit disruptions at schools. And through this, we have seen the number of disruptions go down, but unfortunately they have not been eliminated, which is why we're taking further action. I want to thank the Attorney General because today's announcement and the tabling of the legislation will allow for those access zones to continue to be activated around schools beyond the end of this school year to help keep those students and those staff safe, to help them keep them protected from disruptions and harmful behaviors, because everybody believes that schools need to be safe, welcoming places for children and for the staff. Thank you, Attorney.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today in the Hall of Honor. We're going to take questions from the media now. All members of the media will have one question and one follow-up. For media on the phone line, please remember to press *1 to enter the queue and to unmute yourself when called upon. We're going to start here with Rob Buffum from CTV.
Well, hi, Premier. I wanted to get your thoughts or reaction to this legislation that's being tabled today in relation to places of worship. Is that motivated in part by the crime and attacks we've seen against synagogues in Ontario in the past week? Can you speak briefly about whether there has been an increase in violence against places of worship generally in BC, and what role you think perhaps some of the events going on overseas have had in terms of agitating hatred, directed at different places of worship?
Thanks, Rob. This really comes from a disturbing trend that we've seen, and it persists across a number of different religious groups, where people who are attempting to get to a church or a temple or a gurdwara or a mosque are intimidated out of attending because of activities that are taking place that are intended to intimidate. And this happens either during services or when services are not happening, but regardless, the message is the same. And we just simply won't stand for it. It is not any one religious group. We have had concerns raised by an array of religious groups. You can see behind me faith leaders from the diversity of the faiths in the province represented, because they all share these concerns. And you can't legislate common sense, but in this case, we're trying to. We're trying to say, look, someone's trying to get to their religious institution to pray, leave them alone. Let them do it, and have your protest, but let people go about their business. And so we think this will hopefully send the message that it did in relation to schools, which is just give your head a shake. That's not the best place for your protest. Take it somewhere else.
Follow-up, Rob?
I do. It's for a colleague and it's on a different topic. I wanted to get your reaction. I don't know if you're alive to, there was a letter sent by different pride groups very recently calling on MLAs to take action against Tara Armstrong. They are upset about some of the things that she has done. They talk about her social media comments in relation to Tumbler Ridge, and I gather a characterization of a transgender violence epidemic in the province, and they're upset about the bill she introduced in relation to the Human Rights Code. So they're calling on MLAs to bring in a bill to formally censure her. I just wanted to get your reaction to this expression from these different pride groups.
Well, I really didn't imagine, and I don't believe that Ms. Armstrong campaigned on the idea that she would be an MLA that would come into our legislature and introduce a bill to make it legal to discriminate against someone based on the color of their skin when they come into a restaurant or when they're trying to rent a place, or because they're gay or lesbian in terms of providing them with a service somewhere in the province. It is a deeply disturbing bill that she brought forward to repeal our Human Rights Code. I understand why people are having a reaction to that. It is crucial that MLAs be able to express themselves in the legislature, and also that they be able to express their displeasure when initiatives like this are brought forward. When she introduced that bill, our caucus all voted against it. The Conservatives did not vote against it, and in my opinion, that was a grievous mistake, because people's basic human rights should not be up for debate in our legislature. And it is important as legislators that when that kind of thing is introduced, that we can actually vote against it and express ourselves and say that this is not acceptable and this is not something that we're going to stand for. So we do have mechanisms in the legislature to send that message. Her constituents, as well as Dallas Brody's constituents, have a right to recall their MLAs that is coming up soon, because I don't believe that either of those MLAs campaigned on what they've been doing here, which is to increase hate and division, to demonize Indigenous people and attack their constitutional rights, to propose repealing basic human rights in the province. It is bizarre what they are doing, and I don't think there's support for it in the public.
Next, we'll head to Emily Fagan with the CBC.
Hi, Premier. I'm wondering, can you outline what protest behaviors will and will not be allowed? I know Minister Sharma kind of said it's not a no-go zone, but I'm curious, how close can people get to places of worship, and what kind of behavior will and won't be allowed?
Yeah, I'll pass that over to the Attorney General.
Yeah, thank you. So it's clearly laid out in the bill that I'll be tabling suit exactly the specific behaviors that aren't allowed, including intimidation, causing mental or physical harassment to people, obstructing access to the place of worship. These types of behaviors that we know were causing the most harm. There's also an access zone. So the access zone would mean that those behaviors are prohibited except for 20 meters. There's up to 20 meters beyond the property line of that place of worship. So that's the access zone that's being carved out, and those specific behaviors will be not allowed in there if this bill passes.
Thank you. And I'm curious as well, are there going to be additional resources for enforcing this for local police jurisdictions? And I'm curious as well, how are you balancing this with concerns over freedom of expression?
Sure. The police will be able to use this as one additional tool that they have to ensure safety in the community. We have significantly increased police resources, including additional resources for the hate crime team that includes 5 RCMP members provincially, as well as $230 million additional funding for the RCMP. But that is not specific to this bill. That's just additional resources to ensure community safety across the province. This bill will be a tool that police will be able to use to manage these disruptions when they happen, and the signage will be a method to discourage this from happening in the first place. The balance is pretty straightforward. This is a 20-meter perimeter. Take it outside the 20-meter perimeter and you're just fine.
Next, we'll head to Keith Baldry with Global News.
Question for the attorney. We've done a number of stories on hearing from Lapu Lapu victims about they continue to struggle and fall through the cracks, yet $2 million in donations meant for them have gone to support United Way for grants such as healing circles, art therapy, and yoga. Was Victim Services involved in how this money was distributed, or should it be?
Just on this issue before I pass to the AG, our staff have reached out to the United Way to talk about the distribution of money and to ensure that we can provide accountability to both those who donated and those who were expecting support who may not have received it. Our relationship with United Way is an important one, and we want to have confidence when we tap them to step into these moments that the money that is received is going to end up where it's intended to go. So we're very hopeful that we'll be able to ensure that the United Way will be able to provide the clarity that's needed here.
Thanks for the question. Nothing really to add to what the Premier mentioned, just to say to the victims of and those families that are asking for answers, you deserve answers. We want to make sure that you get the supports that you need in everything that involves overcoming such a tragic event.
As a follow-up, should the decentralized funding structure be changed?
We will always look at what needs to be changed or addressed, particularly when it comes to one of the biggest tragedies that's happened in BC to date. As the Premier mentioned, we'll see what the United Way has to say and make sure that the families get the answers they need.
Next, we'll head to Alec Lazenby with the Vancouver Sun.
Hi, Premier. I'm not sure if this is a better question for you or for the AG, and I know it might come through regulation, but in terms of the fines that will be levied on protests that break the rules around places of worship, have those been set out? How do they compare to the fees that are charged for protests around schools? Like, what's that going to look like?
Thank you. So it largely acts as a deterrent, just like with the Safe Schools Act. So having those legal protections in place gives the authorities better tools to control behavior on the ground. So instead of a fine-driven process, it's a legal-centered process related to us controlling behaviors that are set out there.
And I wanted to ask the Premier around school safety, because we saw Victoria High School had a threat against it this morning. Students went into lockdown in the wake of Tumbler Ridge and everything and the tragedy that happened there. What are the conversations being had around ensuring schools are safe and also ensuring that, situations like that, well, thankfully very, very rare here, that students are safe when they do go to school?
We're in Tumbler Ridge. We had the benefit of a group of people that unfortunately specialize in the work of supporting communities that have been affected by mass shootings at schools. Predominantly, obviously, their work is in the United States, but there's a certain pattern to these kinds of events that's both deeply disturbing, but also the fact that people understand these patterns and that we can use that information to respond and be ready is deeply helpful. And so this group, Safe Schools,
Safer Schools Together.
Safer Schools Together has been assisting us. One of the first things they flagged for us is there are going to be a significant number of other schools that are going to be facing threats in the days and weeks and months following this event. It's disturbing that was in fact the case, but it has been the case. A number of schools have seen lockdowns in the province. They've seen threats come forward. And we have, through various school boards across the province, been able to prepare schools for that. Schools have, as a matter of course, been running at least 2 different rehearsals a year just to prepare, in addition to earthquake preparation, all the other emergency preparation we ask schools to do with their students to be ready for any possible emergency. And we know the fact that the Tumbler Ridge School had practiced and were prepared, that did save lives. So nothing changes in terms of expecting schools to be ready. But I know that school administrators across the province have been looking at their own security protocols following Tumbler Ridge, making decisions about things like locking certain access doors, additional restrictions that they might want to put in place to keep their school community safe. And we're going to continue to be on top of this as it moves forward. Anything to this?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for taking my question. So if I read the press release correctly, places of worship have to apply to get the signage in place. And the bubble zone, the 20-meter bubble zone only really comes into effect once police are called. Why does your government make places of worship jump through that extra bureaucratic hurdle to get the signs in place? Why not declare places of worship? Just make it unilaterally and say these are places where the 20-meter bubble zone applies. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. It's a good question. Every time we approach a different situation, we have to look at the policy that would be most effective. Unlike schools, places of worship are scattered throughout the community and may or may not look like a place of worship from the outside. So just to say, they don't have to apply for the sign. They just have to put a sign up. So there's no bureaucratic step for them to overcome. But in order to notify the public that this is a place of worship under that protection, the sign needs to be put in place. So that was the policy reason for that decision.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. And as a follow-up, obviously, this legislation deals with actual physical threats, so from individuals who might be coming to a place of worship or a school to do their thing, so to speak. But a lot of harassment and so on happens online now. What, if any, additional plans does your government have to deal with that aspect? Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a bigger discussion that needs to happen about online safety and the impact of what happens online into our daily lives. I think nobody's been untouched by that, and certainly the hate that's spread online. The jurisdiction with the best tools to do this is the federal government. They have a couple bills, and they have introduced some that talk about online hate speech and what the both criminal offenses would be for that and the structure of that. So we've been encouraging them to step up to that. They have some stronger rules, but I think that is an aspect of our society that needs attention.
Rob Shaw with Check News.
Premier, you were talking about legislating common sense, and I just wondered if you looked at Jordan Keeley's bill, which basically just comes down to the idea of why don't we just lock the doors at schools and only let people who need to go in there go in there? Does that make sense to you? Is that something we should be thinking at rather than a patchwork system of individual schools and individual districts across the province figuring out what to do at any time on any access door at any moment?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Rob. We're certainly looking at any lessons that we can learn from Tumbler Ridge and in terms of school security generally. It's not out of the question that the province would introduce a provincial standard around school access. It's not something we're prioritizing right now. What we're prioritizing right now is working with individual administrators to help them understand that they have the authority to take the steps that they need to take to ensure that their school is secure and safe for students. We are prepared, of course, always to establish a provincial standard if that feels necessary, but we also want to empower the local schools to be able to make those decisions and not be waiting on an edict from Victoria about what they can and can't do to ensure that students are safe. I do have confidence in the ability of principals and teachers to be able to evaluate their school situation, make those decisions. And it's important to remember that we're not just talking about school shootings, we're also talking about issues related to families that may be in a high conflict situation, a high conflict separation. Issues like that do come up in schools. Other concerns that there may be, and that sometimes a locked school door might mean that a student might not be able to access safety inside the school environment. So we've got to be able to find that balance and have faith in our administrators, but if necessary, the province will absolutely establish a provincial standard, but we'll do that in partnership with our key stakeholders. I'm going to pass that over to the Minister of Education and anything she wishes.
Thank you, Rob. I want to begin by saying that BC schools are very safe places. As parents, every time we drop our kids off at school, we just want to know that they're okay, that they're safe, and they're going to come home all right. And BC has a very comprehensive trauma-informed school-wide safety approach when it comes to school safety planning. We are leaders in North America, and so just families need to know that schools are safe places. When we do have lockdown drills or hold and secures, it's because the system is working. It's because the threat has been identified, and we're doing everything we can to keep schools safe. When we take a look at future actions, we know that schools are unique all across the province. What's going to work for a 2,000 person school, which might have 200 kids coming in and out at any one moment, will not work for a 200 person high school like Tumbler Ridge, right? And so we need to make sure that we're combining our safety actions and our plans while ensuring that schools remain that safe, welcoming, open place for students where they feel secure. And so we need to balance both those out. Thank you.
Premier, I was also looking for your thoughts on, and you've talked a bit about sort of hateful rhetoric and votes in the legislature. Brennan Day has this idea to stop voting on some of the fringe, wacko bills that are put on the floor of the House and dial the temperature down. What do you think of that? Would it help to remove forcing MLAs every day for 30 minutes to stand up and vote on bills they haven't seen, but very controversial issues, have a benefit for our democracy in removing some of the bad actors from exploiting the system?
I know there's definitely opportunities for us to ensure the smooth running of the legislature, and there's an all-party committee that works on that with the House Leader to find those ways that we can work together. We have increased the capacity of individual members to bring forward private members' bills and have them advance beyond what has always been just first reading. So when you do have that ability to have these bills go further than they traditionally have, when you're increasing democracy in that way, It's important to keep track of the fact that when you pass a bill through first reading, it has more consequence than it used to. And also, the bills that have been coming forward have been quite astonishing in the content. There are two MLAs in our legislature that were elected as Conservatives or sitting as independents that are trying to push the border of what is acceptable and what has historically been acceptable in our legislature. There is a history in our legislature of restricting the rights of people of different backgrounds from voting, from owning property, from participating in our legislature, from participating fully in society. It is a deeply unfortunate history, but I really thought we were past it until the bill was introduced to repeal the Human Rights Code in the province. It is important for us to be able to stand up and vote against that. It's important for us to send that message. I think there are ways that we can improve the speed and efficiency of what we do in the legislature. Always glad to engage in those conversations. But I would be hesitant to restrict the ability of MLAs to vote against a measure like that, because people do need to say, look, not on our watch.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes today's event.
Thank you.